This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is a joint meeting of the Southampton Housing Authority and CPC on this Monday, April 4. Welcome, everyone. We have some agenda items. First of all, is there anyone here who's from the public? We'll call the meeting to order. I guess that's been called to order.
Yeah, Jim, let Virginia, I think, do her meeting too.
Yep,
then.
go ahead, Virginia. Thank you.
I will call to order the Community Preservation Committee meeting.
Excellent. So both bodies are in session. Is there any first agenda item? Is there open time for public input? Is there anyone from the public here who has input for tonight's meeting? I wish to state that now.
Nope.
Seemingly not. So we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is approval of the previous minutes. Everyone and this is for the Housing Authority previous minutes. Housing Authority members have a chance to review those.
Yep, I move to approve them with no edits.
Both the 7th and the 21st.
Oh, I was looking at the 7th and the
Okay.
3rd, or what was that? No, oh yeah, 31st.
Yep.
Yep, those two.
Mm-hmm.
I'll second.
Okay, by voice vote, please.
Simmons, aye.
Kane, I.
Sini, aye. It is unanimous. Very good. Great. All right, moving on to the Joint Housing Authority Community Preservation discussion for funding of the potential building lot purchase. Since this is a joint meeting, Virginia, I'll give you an opportunity to initiate or start this if you have anything you want to say with your folks present. Or
I think that maybe if you would give us a quick review of exactly what this is.
mm-hmm.
And then I do have one suggestion for you after that.
Fair enough.
Has everyone seen the application though, Virginia?
I tried sending it out to everyone. I hope they did.
Okay, I just announced that Sarah Stein from Planning has joined us. Thank you, Sarah. So this is a property of approximately, I think, 1.3 acres.
Do you want me to just put it up on the screen just so we can have it in front of us?
If you have it handy and want
Yeah,
to
I
share
have
it,
it.
great.
You want to race? Okay, good.
There you go. Good.
Nice. Nice.
1.34.
Yes.
So it's a buildable lot, 200 feet of frontage. That's been, we're told, perked twice. And we at the Housing Authority are obviously always looking for lots where we could potentially build affordable housing. This is on College Highway, across from the country club, but a little further south toward Westfield. Many of you know this property. That's quite an aerial view right there. I like this view right there, if you could pause that, even though it's not 100% accurate, because it gives the appearance that the property actually crosses on a shed that was built on the abutting property, but that's not true. There's no worries there. The street you're seeing running by there is College Highway. And so this land also abuts preserved land that Concom is very familiar with. This is land that they've been in their possession for, I think, 50 years. It was donated a long time ago. Many of you, again, know this property. So this is a desirable lot for us on a number of levels, including the possibility, which Concom is open to, of doing a carve out or an easement option to allow for parking and then access to the Concom property circumventing a sizable gully, I guess, or you could call there, a valley that runs between College Highway and the most of the property. So that's also a possibility and a reason to consider this purchase. So we're looking at some of the details: the purchase price, estimated legal fees, survey, etc., appraisal, for a total amount pursued of about $118,000. Janet, Sierra, do you have any additional overview descriptions you want to add to my cursory description?
I don't think so. I think we would definitely have the survey done to confirm where that one line is. Because even on the assessor's office on their maps, it also looks like it goes through there, but apparently when that property next door was just sold and bought, and there was not an issue with the shed. So it just needs to be resurveyed for certainty.
Jim,
You
if I
do
could,
want
if I
you
could ask
do
the
want to dot
question,
that I. I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
ask the question, the purchase price, is that the asking price, 1095?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's the asking price. So there would still be the necessity for an appraisal, is that correct?
Those are listed there, Bob. The appraisal, the survey.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yes,
Yep.
okay, yeah. But no, but I mean the appraisal price.
That was provided to us by Ed Gibson. So that was his.
Okay.
Bob,
No,
do you mean just the property?
I'm not saying the cost of the appraisal,
Oh,
but I'm
No.
saying the actual appraisal value. Because as I understand it, the town cannot pay any more than appraisal value, is that correct?
right. That's why we're having an appraisal done. Correct.
Right. So the 1095 is the asking price.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
But you're correct as well. That we will need to get it appraised to be able to really make an offer from the town.
Right. And that's always a bit of a wild card, because sometimes the appraisal values can be not close to the asking price, but you know, it can still be our offer, and the seller can agree or not agree.
so my other question here, being a neophyte at this, assuming that this gets approved by us and by town meeting, and we purchase the property. So step 2 would be what?
So step 2 would be finding a builder to build on the property. And that would be challenging on a number of levels, because builders right now are pretty straight out, and material costs are pretty high. But builders, I think, would find it an affordable build option because they don't have to buy the property. But a preferable route, and one we're already exploring, is to have a builder like Habitat for Humanity come in and build the property, which is something that they do frequently. Obviously, that's their charge, their mission. And you know, we've been reaching out to them, and there's some interest. Of course, the devil's in the details, as far as, you know, they too want to make sure the property is buildable and et cetera, and acceptable to a property, you know, a housing that they build. They're not agreeable to just build anywhere just because a town says, oh, we've got property for you to build on. So to your point, Bob, there's some unknowns, in my opinion. Where I hang my hat, and this is just me talking, I don't speak necessarily for all housing authority, is we're all kind of in that boat, but other towns have done this successfully. I mention this frequently because I'm familiar with it. There's a successful Habitat for Humanity build on East Street in Easthampton. I think it's a duplex. So it happens. These things go through, and houses get built.
And there's some up on Glendale Road in Northampton as well.
Thank
the
you.
west end. Yeah,
Yeah, are those
Habitat.
Habitat,
yes,
Janet?
those are
They-
Habitat.
they
They're
are
kind of
Habitat.
Built off the road, they're tucked in the
There's
back.
3.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, no, not the brand new ones. They were built like a year or two ago.
Yeah, the new ones I believe are not Habitat, if I'm
Yeah, those
correct.
aren't the ones I'm referring to, right? These are further past that and same side of the street and tucked kind of way back.
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
you might not see them, but I remember when they were building in the big Habitat signs that were there, so.
Right, but the ones that were built more recently are not Habitat, yet they were built. So there's options in addition to Habitat. You mentioned the word neophyte, Bob. It's a great description for me anyway. I'll unfortunately I have to wear that hat right now. As a housing authority, we're figuring this out.
I will also share that I spoke to the building commissioner this morning, and apparently somebody stopped in last week to his office inquiring about this property. So I don't know anything more than that, but just that there has been some interest.
Well, my feeling is that the first thing we need to do, and obvious, is so that the housing authority could then at least say, we're in this process, is make sure this project goes forward. And I want to remind all of you that our community housing line is huge. It will easily, these funds can come out and there's still considerable money.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping maybe that the housing authority is going to begin to look at a housing trust in which they would not have to go through all of these steps.
Preaching to the choir, Virginia. We are hotly pursuing a housing trust because, and that's because, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just to summarize where I think you're going is, there's always been the timing of this. It's not like housing authorities in the past have not pursued properties, but by the time they get it approved through CPC, and by the time the town goes before town meeting and it's approved, the property's purchased.
Yeah.
So this is not the efficient way to go. I think we're proceeding here because this property has been on the market for a while, and it's worth the effort since it's been on the market.
Yeah.
Question beyond, so let's assume that we approve, CPC approves, town approves, and now we own the property.
And those are big assumptions, but yes.
And yes, and then we can't find a suitable builder to build a single housing or duplex housing house there that fits the criteria. Then what happens to the property? Or do we know?
Well, it would be the towns, the housing authority would be in control of it.
Okay,
I mean, it's possible if that happens, and it's probably going to take, it may not happen in a year. It may take a few years to get to that point. But I guess the option to always sell it as well is available. So.
okay, okay.
Another option, I think it's an excellent question, Bob. Another option is that this does abut Concom property, so the
Right,
town owns it and could absorb it into there.
right.
Rini, you had a question?
Yeah, so I just came from a public safety committee meeting where we're going over all town-owned property within a mile radius. And, because we're looking at potential properties for a public safety complex, and there's a property on High Street that's completely landlocked that we probably absorbed in some sort of whatever. But I just want to warn people that, I do support all the efforts towards affordable housing for sure. But I just think that everyone's going to have to be prepared that people are going to be very unhappy about this coming off the tax rolls if this sits in town-owned property for a long time, without having anything done with it. And right now, with all the building going on and the housing market and the cost of materials. I just think that there should be a plan for addressing those concerns.
Can I add something here?
Mhm.
From the perspective of looking for grant funding for building and things like that, over the last year when we were looking at the community one-stop for growth options, there's so much state funding available for building and doing things with land once you have it, but we just did not have any land that we could use, for that type of thing. So I think even if a for-profit builder wouldn't necessarily jump at the opportunity right now in the next year or so, there's also potential for all sorts of state funding and other programs that could help us out with this for affordable housing.
And I'd also like to add that I did visit the assessor's office and pull the property card, and this is assessed at the moment is 15,500, and it doesn't have it on record that it's perked. So we've gotten them the correct records so that they could correct their information. And so right now it's not generating, I guess the good news and the bad news is that it's not generating a lot of taxes at the moment for that size property, but the other thing has to be corrected. And obviously we wouldn't move forward with the purchase unless that was rectified. Well, that's why we're going to get an appraisal too.
No, I'm just trying to point out things that are going to be raised at a town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, my personal feeling about that is we purchased a lot of property that stands no chance, no opportunity to get put back onto the tax rolls. At least in this kind of a situation, there is a chance, a very good chance that it gets put back on, as opposed to buying conservation property that never has that chance. So that's the selling point there.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, and if we do, when we are successful building, we'll have more money on the tax rolls than what's being collected on there at the moment. So, because once it's built on, it goes back to the tax rolls.
This other piece of property that we have on the community preservation has on the town meeting is one of those it's water departments. And it's another one that would not generate. And, come around to this, there's two real good reasons. Is one, that this will go back on. And the second nice reason is that community preservation is getting people looking at why we have the money we have and we're not using it. Part of that is this huge amount of money that really is for housing. And I didn't go over and I know everybody's busy over there right now. So I did not try to find out exactly what's in this line, but I know the last figure was in the 400.
It was close to 500,000
It's close to 500.
in that bucket, in that bucket alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is where we're getting pressure because people don't realize that maybe that really has to be spent around housing. And they're saying, why are they sitting on all this money when we're making cuts in the budget? So this
and the reason no one's sitting on it is that we've been unable to purchase property because of this very discussion we're having, the process we're going through today. That's why the housing trust is key, because it gives that flexibility.
Yeah.
And Jim, isn't the other half of that it's been difficult to convince builders that they should invest in this kind of a program as opposed to a higher profit level building of houses. And so therefore builders have not really climbed on the bandwagon here, have they?
Well,
No.
builders, I would argue that builders really haven't had the opportunity. They're not in business to lose money. So until you're, they get more money can be made with a higher square footage home, or even with smaller square footage homes that are more high end than with an affordable unit that meets the affordable requirements, which includes, access for ADA and things like that. And so the thing that the one key thing that will turn it for a builder, my understanding, is that if they're not buying the lot, then that's a big cost. That's not part of their upfront cost.
Yeah, there's 100,000 plus, yeah.
Right. And that hasn't happened. That opportunity hasn't presented itself in town yet because there's been no way to offer that.
Well, CPC funded a pizza party at Paisano's with builders to try to elicit
Yep.
what their barriers were. Did you get a report on that?
Yeah, I was part of that actually that was when I was first joining the housing authority. And so the things I'm saying are pretty much echoing what we heard during that pizza party. I think there's builders in town who are, good citizens and, want to do right by the town, but they're understandably not ready to make a sizable donation to the town. Their businesses to be able to, at least break even, if not, make a little bit of money. And I think there's some builders who'd be willing to stretch so that, maybe they're not making their usual profit margin, but they're willing to do something for the betterment of the town. But we have to start there to the point where it's even approaching that kind of margin for them. That was the feedback we received.
Buildings costs going pretty high the last couple of years. It's even more difficult to build an affordable house.
Honestly, I
And
think
the
that's the
property.
reason the reason this property is available right now. You talked about maybe, how soon can we turn it around? Building, I think, has slowed just because the cost of materials are through the roof. And until that supply chain problem is, eradicated, and that's going to be an issue. And that's certainly going to affect what we do here also. But we're in the same boat with everyone in the private sector in that issue. Those who can afford it are having additions and new homes built, but it's very expensive right now. And that's simply a supply and demand equation, is my understanding. Again, I'm not a builder. This is just what I'm hearing.
Could you just tell us what steps so if this committee approves it and the town approves it, and you have suggested a couple of different avenues to go to in terms of getting a builder, this would be classified as a housing property, which comes with certain restrictions, correct?
Right. It comes with a deed restriction. To be classified, it would have to be affordable with a capital A. So it meets a HUD guideline, and the minimum is 80% of AMI, area medium income, which is set by HUD, and they base it, we're aligned with the Springfield AMI. So the house would have to be minimally built so that it's affordable for 80% of the AMI, and it would be priced based on no more than 30% of a household's income is spent on their housing. So you kind of price it backwards. Thank you. That's okay. You price it backwards. So you start with 80% AMI and that's a figure, and you take 30% of that could be on the housing, and that's your mortgage essentially. And so what could you price the house with a mortgage like that? And because it's deed restricted, Rini, what happens is, let's say the homeowner down the road wants to move and they want to sell their house, they can only sell it again for that 80% AMI. So they might make a small profit at just time grants, but they're not allowed to turn around and sell it at market rate and run away with those profits. So it stays in perpetuity within the affordable range.
Are there other things that you're not allowed to do to the property or to the house?
That's a good question.
I think I remember hearing something about that. I was just curious.
Yeah.
It's something we would work with Habitat too, to make sure that.
Right. Well, and
we're
also
a
we would need,
nonprofit builder.
right. Well, we would need to, if you're Rini, you're talking about the homeowner. Let's say 2 years down the road, they want to do something. Are they allowed to? What kind of restrictions? That's a great question that I don't have an answer to. But
Well, I would
I
think
could
so.
say there is, because in the deed restriction, these sort of things they're new to our town, but they're not new. And so I'm assuming, but
There are
there's a
limitations to
template.
what you can do. I'm almost positive. I just don't
Yeah.
remember what they are. And I don't, maybe we don't need to go down there, but I'm just anticipating some questions that come up from people.
It's good because these kind of questions could come up at town meeting, and we want to be able to answer them as best we can.
Mhm.
One thing I know we have to do is really reassure people that the deed restriction does mean that they cannot just sell it for
Flip
market
it.
value the next.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That
Yeah.
I can assure you.
I know that, but I've talked to people and they said, oh, people will get around that. They'll do this, they'll do that. And then there goes your affordable house. And we really have to assure them that those deed restrictions are serious.
Sierra, I wonder if these are questions that could be posed to MHP. Would they be a good resource to answer these questions? Because they're good questions. And we all, I mean, I can assure you that no, you can't get around that, but something more official than the housing authority in town saying, we assure you. Because to Reni's point, voters are going to need to be convinced.
I did not take the time to go to the Community Preservation Coalition, but I know they have materials on this
Oh, okay.
because they want to make sure those areas that
Right.
our money is going into, that they are adhered to.
They have extensive materials on that. Jim, put you on the hook here, but have you been approached by any potential builders that have shown any interest at all here? No.
It's
Okay.
not to be on the hook because the answer is no.
And we don't, I mean, nobody knows until like these kind of meetings that we're really in the process, I think.
So will the purchase price of the house include the land? Will there be, or is the town surcharge CPC covering the land and somebody only has to buy the house?
No, they need to buy the whole piece if it's going to be theirs with their.
So
That's
would
my
there be
understanding.
so would there be reimbursement to CPC if people approve purchase of the land or no?
No.
Yeah, no, I think my understanding
No.
is that we would in some way, Jim or Sierra, correct me if I'm wrong, that we would gift the land to like a Habitat for Humanity,
Mhm.
and they would build and sell,
Right.
That's my understanding too.
Yeah,
which makes it easier and more affordable for them to take this approach and
Mhm.
not have the cost of the land and the building costs on top
In
of it.
any of the research that I've done, I have not seen a reimbursement in any of the cases in any of the towns. So
Mhm.
I don't think that's in there anywhere.
yeah. Well, why would it be in the housing line? And we don't
Yeah.
expect reimbursement for the work that was done at the Clark Chapman House, for
Right.
example, under
Right.
historic.
Right.
So, it is the town people's money that we are spending, but we spend it on these other things too.
Yeah, but it's different. I mean, if we're saying that we're purchasing the land and then the house is gonna be, I mean, I just want to understand how it worked. That's all. I just wanted to understand how it
Right.
worked.
So my understanding, Rini, is what we're purchasing and therefore, and then is the land and then deeding it over, or whatever, is that
Okay.
we're creating the restriction in perpetuity. That's the
Mhm.
value that the town gets by purchasing the land. It's because this will always be affordable because of the
Mhm.
deed restriction going
Mhm.
forward.
Mhm.
And
There's a discussion about,
the two positives here are, number one, it gets turned back to the tax rolls. Number two, that if we do enough of this, it opens up the possibility for grants that and I don't know the exact ones, I don't know the names of them, but it opens up the possibilities for other grants for towns that do participate in this moderate income housing program. So if we, and I don't know exactly, one piece of property is certainly not going to make us eligible for those grants, but 2 or 3 might. So
Mhm.
there are two positives here.
Mhm.
Return to the tax rolls and open up the possibility for grants.
Barbie, this is Janet Brown. I see, if I'm thinking about the same property, there is a for sale sign by Taylor. Do you have
Okay.
anyone check to see if they have a purchaser in mind or anybody interested in the property? That might be a moot point.
They have not, to my knowledge at this point. We've been in touch with people at Taylor to get some information, but unless we can make a contingency offer, somebody could come in and make an offer.
Right?
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, there's no.
That's
way to
always the
prevent
danger,
that.
Ms. Brown. It's a really good point. I mean, we could do all this work and next week someone could.
Yeah.
Was there a discussion about having a duplex on this land?
It's a possibility.
It is a possibility. We have to look at, that's the reason to have it, to have the surveyor check it out and to discuss with planning and zoning, and it's been perked twice, but can it be, does it have the capacity for a duplex? Because a duplex is a nice option. It gives you more housing,
Or a
bang
convex.
bang for the buck, or a condex, right?
I will also share that the water table is pretty high where they perked it. It's like 34 inches. So they may have to build without a basement and like have a raised duplex or something like that. So.
Well, those are all things down the road and people may be asking about those things, but I'm just wondering if once the owner knows that there's actually some movement toward selling, maybe that the sale can go through, that it'll make it a little easier not to have to worry about other people coming in. I don't know.
I mean, I think one of the first steps we would do is have an appraisal done.
Yeah,
once the
Right.
money passes, because if it appraises at, 50,000 and the seller's not interested, then we're kind of done.
Right, and it all depends on the seller, because again, even if it appraises at 109,000 and someone comes in and bids 110, this is a private sale. So unless the seller decides they want to, sell it to the town regardless of the price.
Who is the seller?
I have his name. So
Is it a neighbor?
No, he lives I think he lives on Brickyard. They live on Brickyard. I don't know that I have it in front of me. I
Right.
had it at one point.
I understand this lot and the one next to it were originally sold by the same persons who donated the Concom land. They divided the land up 50 years ago or whatever and sold these 2 lots and then donated the Concom piece right next door.
Is it Lyman?
Could I ask in relation to that,
Lyman.
assuming that this project does go forward,
And that's a big
how
assumption.
would it work? What would the steps be called for an easement for the parking lot for the Concom land? Or would it make sense for the Concom to buy enough of it to have a little parking lot, just 2 or 3 cars, I think? Would that be part of the town meeting article or?
Well,
Mm,
I don't
No.
think we're ready to talk about that kind of thing.
Right. So we explored with Concom. We met with them and There was some interest, but not, I can't speak for them, but I can only speak for the sense from the meeting that we had, that there's interest, but not sufficient interest to put a financial skin in the game from Concom.
And guess where they go to get
There-
the money?
There was or there was not?
Was not. So because they have plenty of
I think
frontage.
that's a mispers. Yeah, no, that's why I'm here, because
Well,
they're very interested, but they already had this meeting scheduled, and so they had a conflict and couldn't be here. And I'm only an associate, but yes, they're very interested in some kind of
well,
easement or purchasing the parking lot.
Yeah.
okay, well,
Hi,
that's good
this
to
is
hear.
Joy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm driving. I had a conflict. So I'm the liaison, and I spoke with Marla earlier this weekend about this meeting as well. And I sent her along the CPC application and everything. She was also wondering what was going on, like how it would work out, because they are interested in that parking lot situation. But I think Jim is also saying, like, they're interested in supporting the project because it abuts the property, but they're not looking to buy the entire property or put money towards the property. They just would be supportive of the town purchasing the property because it could be a dual benefit to both housing authority and Concom if there's a parking lot there and just affordable housing there. I think that from my perspective of meeting between the two groups is that both are supportive of purchase of the town obtaining land housing authority doing the planning towards the house, and if there is room enough and if it is manageable enough. I mean, it's 1.34 acres, but I think that we have to meet with like a surveyor to determine how that would work out, what, depending on what type of housing goes there, what that easement would even look like for a parking lot. So I think, yes, and Marla would be, the Conservation Commission would definitely be interested in the easement to put a parking lot, but from a planning point of view, and it's really hard to determine what that would look like right now. So it's, from my perspective, it would be a goal down the road, but keeping it on the checklist.
Jim, if I could interject here, if I were a member of the Housing Authority, I would not want to muddy up this proposal because this really does muddy it up, because at some point,
Sure does.
basically what happens here is that a builder builds a piece of property and it gets sold to an individual or whoever. If we're talking about carving off a piece of this 1 point whatever acres here to build a parking lot, that means dividing that property.
And the funding.
And the funding, yes. So, Jim, if I
Well-
were you, I wouldn't even mention that.
Well,
I don't know if it would divide
No,
up if
no.
if the housing authority decides to gift an easement to the
That's right.
conservation commission to have the access to town property that there's really no access to right now. I think it's the town and Concom and housing authority are both town committees, and if one
Right.
committee wants to gift
But-
an easement to another committee, I don't think that muddies anything.
But Joy, at some point, this becomes private property. Somebody buys it. And unless you carve.
With an easement on the con.
With
for
with
the
an
Concom.
easement, with an easement.
With an
With
easement.
in the deed, just like it's in perpetuity, it has to be affordable housing.
Right.
It also is going to come with an easement for conservation commission for people to be able to access that conservation area.
Okay.
Right.
I want to point out that Bob is right. It muddies this whole thing up. Stick with what we know. Things can be worked out later if they can be.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I'm not proposing that we have to define this before we go to town meeting. I'm just saying it's an option going forward because it would be owned by the town to consider something like an easement.
But
I
it
think
really,
it's an option, and I also think it's a concern for the Conservation Commission. It's something that, like I said, they're not putting money towards it, but they do have interest in it. It is abutting their property.
I think it's
So
fine.
they're going to have a say about it.
Yeah,
And
and
that's, why would they have a say about it, Joy? I don't
I'm just
understand.
saying as an abutter, like about having, have already said we're interested in having access through that property to the conservation property.
So I, as an individual,
I'm
if
just
I,
saying, it should be acknowledged.
if I'm willing to pay $120,000 for this property and they sell it to me, is Conservation Commission going to say to me, oh, you can't buy that unless you give us an easement?
No, no.
We need to not discuss this at this time. I know it's a concern that they might like. If there's any other money involved, you know where they're coming to get it. I do, at least. It'll be right on community preservation's doorstep. And we need very quickly to move on this piece of property
Mhm.
for the housing authority, and which, by the way, even though we say it's the town's housing authority has
It's our property.
control.
Right.
And we need to move on that very quickly without any of these side problems. And down the road,
Right.
we can look and see how this can be done. But
Correct.
if we get into this tonight,
Yeah. I don't think we should get into this tonight because we already discussed with Concom. They've expressed their interest. We're open to that. But to Virginia's point, we have to create a warrant and we have to get it to the town by April 6th. That's 2 days from now.
well, it's
So-
going in tomorrow.
Yeah.
If it's-
Virginia will take good care of that, right, Virginia?
Yes. I've written a lot of these. I know how, basically it'll say that we're moving this money to the housing authority.
Mhm.
And I would like to add, though, if, we start working with Habitat and we talk about potentially a parking lot over here and they go, stop, then we have a decision. I mean,
Right.
the
Right.
priority is the
The
affordable.
priority is housing. Agreed. But,
And- As
I think
much
we're all on the same page. There's a possibility, but it's all about how you order these things. And to Joy's point, we appreciate Concom's interest. We met with them and we'll continue to explore that, but not to the detriment, like what Janet was saying, to what we're trying to do here, which is to create affordable housing.
Once you get this piece, and basically, then you can begin to look at all the other options. Who's going to
Exactly.
build? How do we work with the Concom to have
Right.
this? But get that.
First things first. I think that's where Bob was coming from.
Yeah.
Don't muddy the waters now and we can look.
Right.
Yeah.
Does anybody know the parcel number on this property?
Yeah. It's on some of the things, I think.
Let me see if I can.
And-
grab it.
Well, there's a MLS number. That's not a parcel number.
Well, it's 354. I mean, if you look at the property cards, you can look it up under 354.
Okay.
I'm looking for, see if there's this is the old perk, so I'm looking to see if it's listed as anything other than that.
And the other thing I want to point out is this money is already there. It's in the account. You don't have to wait till July 1. You can if that passes the town meeting, you can be there the next day with the offer.
Correct.
There,
There's sufficient funds and then some.
more than.
Well, I have a point I would like to make. If you wanted to pass town meeting, it seems to me like you could appeal to both sides, both the Concom and the housing side.
It's nice to say that,
something to be.
but at this point, they're going to start bringing in questions that we don't have answers to. And we've done, and I'm not doing this, I'm not saying this, and I'm not saying we have to scuttle the whole thing, because don't want the conservation to be involved. But we have to stick with what we know. And we have to make it clear. If that question comes up, the answer is, once we own the property, that can be discussed.
Right. We can use language like we're open to, once we
We're
own,
open to.
discussing that. We've had discussions with Concom. We understand they're interested. We're interested in looking at that, but we can't make any concrete promises at this time. We have first things first. You have to do, you can't put that cart before the horse.
And I would hope that conservation would understand and appreciate the need for affordable housing regardless.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why you went to the Conservation Commission if
I think
was
they
never your
there was a
intention to.
discussion between somebody from Plan Open Space and somebody from Concom, and they came to us about the property. We didn't go to them. It started out there and kind of came to us, and then we
Right.
came without. Is that correct, Jim?
Right. Well, and it's also true that, I mean, because it abuts Concom, we're very interested in their input, and, you know, we put it out there that, you know, we want to partner with them. So I don't want you to, and I don't want Concom to feel that we're no longer interested in partnering with them. That's not true. But there's just a logical approach that requires A must come before B. That doesn't mean we're not interested anymore, or that we have less interest. It just means you can't put the, you know, what of the cliche can I think of? You know, you can't put that cart before that horse.
Well, can I ask a question? Because I think it does matter. Was it the interest of Concom to build parking spots on this particular property or on the Lyman property that they already own?
So
No, let Diana
Yeah.
answer that.
I was told it would be on his property because if it could be, it would avoid the need for an expensive bridge.
right, there's a
the
gully.
VA.
That's correct.
Yeah.
There's a gully with all the frontage that's already available, my understanding.
And I should clarify, a parking lot is really perhaps not the best description.
Right.
If you know, on Pomeroy Meadow, there's just a little cleared
Right.
patch of dirt
Right.
where that qualifies.
Right.
Yeah, but there's no place, I mean, that conservation property is so underutilized because there's no place to park. It would be a nice thing for, you know, to tell Mr. Hendrick that, who donated the land,
Right.
that we finally have a place for 2 or 3 cars to park there.
Well, Diana, I understand also, and again, the danger with having this discussion is we're repeating the meeting we had with Concom. And I don't know if this is the right place for that, but we also discussed during that meeting is that there are no trails on that property. And they're barely able, there were some members of Concom, if I can paraphrase accurately, I'll do my best, who had grave concerns about, you know, weren't really interested in the parking because there were no trails on the property, because they barely have enough volunteers. They don't have enough volunteers to maintain the current trails they already have. So there was an element of Concom who was concerned about parking and access to something that doesn't exist because they don't, you know, it would be very hard to make that happen, trails and et cetera, beyond the parking issue. But I'm just repeating that meeting, which I really want to avoid here.
Well, I just want to remind you that I believe there is on the town meeting warrant a request for the water department to purchase the land on Palmer Meadow Road. So what I continually hear is we just keep buying this land and don't have the funds to maintain it. There is some value in conserving land without trails and maintenance for the purpose of conserving land. So I just wanted to point that out, that that land itself is still very valuable in and of itself, but I get what you're saying. I just think it's important to clarify what they were and hoping to use this land we're talking about for.
Mm-hmm.
This has nothing to do with this piece, but the piece that's going to be on the warrant is not for open space. It's
Correct.
water preservation.
Right.
And we want to keep that foremost, because if that land gets in hands and fertilizers and all this other stuff is dumped on it, we've got a water problem.
Right. Compromises the.
And so we don't want to get into, we've got all this land, but we're not doing anything with it either. Sometimes we don't need to.
Right. But there's always people that feel strongly about tax dollars. So we are losing tax dollars every time we usually purchase land, not in this case, but that's always a big concern. It comes up all the time, whether it's Dunkin' Donuts or it's conservation land.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think once we get it surveyed and we own the property and we can work with somebody and kind of vision out if we had a small parking lot, you know, how that would work out. It's just, I don't think anybody's against it. I just don't think, agreeing with everybody, that it just may be after the fact, not, you know, not a part of the original.
And I think that would be fair to say that if that question comes up. Later on, we can discuss this.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Well, are there any more concerns or questions or anything that we need to deal with? My only comment was I was a little bit concerned on the amount, not because it's too large, but I'm hoping you have been really, really careful on the steps, the appraisal, the lawyer's fees and things like that, so that you have enough without having to come back for more. I'm trying to give away money.
Again, we did try to go to Ed because he has done that for the various properties, and based on the size, he kind of has some type of formula that he uses. So
Well,
I'm comfortable with it, but you never know what prices do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
I was just going to suggest, instead of the amount that you've come up with, maybe a little bit more. Because it comes
Like a
back
cushion? Are you suggesting a cushion?
a little extra just in case those.
Contingency, the word there.
Well, the way to do that, and whenever I make a motion with involving these CPC funds, I always like to say, put the cushion in, but say up to a certain amount. It doesn't mean you have to spend it. It
Right.
just means you just put a max on it.
Yeah.
But
Well,
for voters who are careful about money, what do we call this cushion? I think we want to give it a label that's.
do they separate it during the article? Does it go in broken down, Virginia?
it can go in. My wording would be, my first feeling is to make it 120,000, rounded off and nice and neat. So you do have a little cushion, and say the cost of the property, to purchase the property with the purchase price and associated costs, such as, and name them, but not the amount.
So you name them, but you don't necessarily itemize them out.
Yeah.
I like that idea, especially
And
since that.
And the form itself actually says total estimated cost of the project.
Yeah.
Estimated, that's the key there. Total estimated cost of the project.
So if we go up a little and just say the associated costs, then such as da, 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 da. And that'll give you a little, so that you're not, the last thing that I like to do is go back to the next town meeting with the additional costs before you can move forward.
So to that point, Virginia, is 120 enough of a cushion?
You could say 125. It's, first of all, there's plenty of money.
Well, exactly.
There's plenty of money there.
Right. This is not new spending. We have to remind folks of that.
They've already paid. This has been sitting there for 20 years, some of it. We do get interest on it.
Right.
But it's been waiting for something to happen.
I would suggest that we round it up beyond 120, maybe
Okay,
125.
okay.
What if folks, I guess that's part of building emotion when we get there. But
Is there, if we decide and the survey's done and everybody says, oh, we could put a little parking lot over here, is there additional costs associated with that? And would that come out of this amount, or would Concom then go to CPA for a small amount, or?
Well, Comcom
I
would
mean, the
have,
work, we have the
Yeah.
property to make the parking lot.
if you go on with that, eventually.
I would think
Can I ask-
Concom would
Can I ask
pursue.
another questions about that? I just went on Muni Mapper and, there is frontage on Route 10 for the property at Lyman Conservation. Why isn't there consideration to put a parking lot there?
So again, the reason is there's a significant gully that runs kind of diagonal across the property.
Oh, okay.
And it ends right at this property. So to create access to the property, which has never been considered because they,
Oh, okay.
again, they would have
I
to
didn't-
build a bridge. But that's possible because Concom is going to have the state, controlled logging in there, as I understand. And the logger has to produce, makes a contribution to Concom, and that will give them some money. So
Yeah.
the property is not, to my understanding, really completely inaccessible. But
Okay.
there's a significant, it's not only building a bridge, but walkability, the topography is very steep down and back up again.
Yeah. Okay.
Versus access from this abutting property, you circumvent that gully completely.
Okay.
Because there's also, it's a pretty wide shoulder there too, so you can actually park along the shoulder there to
Yeah.
some degree. But there's a big ditch and one kind of opening that goes into the property with drainage ditches on both sides of it. So
I'm not sure parking is allowable on a state highway.
I don't know.
Yeah, could be an issue. So
Okay.
there's reasons to be interested if you're Concom.
Mhm.
But again,
And
that's assuming you want to build trails and make it accessible, which is an
that-
assumption.
the other thing I might suggest is that they make a plan for their property, which includes parking on their property. If they
Right.
need a little bridge, build it in.
Again, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but you
Yeah.
can offer an easement without actually utilizing it. You could say there's an easement for Concom, but to actually build parking there, they'd have to, I would think, have a plan that would include building trails and maintaining them.
Yeah,
Otherwise, why do you have parking?
well, I think we're really probably ready to move on.
I think so too.
We can,
Anyone else have any additional questions that we want to make sure we vet them all completely? And I want to give special attention to Joy, who's driving. So it's hard you don't get the visual to give you an opportunity, and maybe.
I have
Ms.
no more
Janet Brown.
questions.
Okay.
I'm good with everything that's been said.
Okay. And Janet Brown, you're just showing a picture, so I'm not sure if you're driving also, but do you have any additional questions?
That's been very interesting. Thank you.
Mhm.
okay. Do members of the Community Preservation Committee wish to take a vote?
You need a motion.
Yeah, you have to create a motion.
Yeah. So if someone would like to make a motion,
I'll do it.
Right.
Move that the Community Preservation Fund allot up to $125,000 to the Housing Authority for the purchase of property at 354 College Highway.
thank you, Robert. Second from the committee.
I'll second it.
All right. Any more discussion? If not, community preservation people, please vote. Say your name and how you're voting.
I just want to clarify, Cindy asked me to sit in as a representative from the planning board. Should I be voting in her stead or not?
I don't think we've got a quorum. so-
Okay, then I won't worry about it.
But we do want you to take things back to the planning board
Sounds good.
and to Cindy. And thank you for doing that for her.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. Members,
And I,
Goes a bye.
Brown,
Roden, aye.
Ahart, aye. Is that 5?
I think so.
okay,
You did.
All right. Thank you, Bob. You've done that before. That was well worded.
Oh, yeah.
Someone from
I
the
get
house.
stuck every time, Jim.
Well, no good deed goes unpunished. Housing Authority side, similar, looking for a motion.
do we need to vote on it?
Yeah, I thought we voted on it at the last meeting.
Yeah, are we? So
They're just voting to approve our application.
that's correct.
So we-
That's correct. Thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
But we can make a motion if you want.
Well, we don't need to vote twice.
So I will go down tomorrow with the article for the town meeting. And we'll see where it goes from there.
Thank God you have experience writing those articles.
Well, they've changed some in 20 years. I hate to say that.
Jim, when she writes the article, would you be in favor of her not mentioning the possibility of a parking lot?
Well, I'm not going to.
I don't think
Okay.
she should.
Okay, all right,
Not in
fine.
the motion.
Thank you
so.
very much.
I won't.
Right,
Not getting there. I
right.
Can we leave this meeting now, Virginia, or what?
was going to say,
Aren't you having fun, Bob?
Oh, yes, I am, but
call for adjournment of the community preservation. Those in favor?
I,
Aye.
aye. Brown,
Yeah, if you want to leave, I'm going to stick around because I want to hear the next thing on the housing trust.
okay, bye, y'all.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next agenda item before the housing trust status is the mass housing MHP grant update, the March 9th input.
Jim, can I say one thing?
Yes, you
I just
may.
wanted to, for the record, thank the community preservation, now that they're gone, for supporting the and supporting us in this endeavor. So nice, great discussion, great questions, great thought provoking things that will keep me awake till at least 8:30 tonight. So
Appreciate that, Janet. That's, I should do a better job of that as chair and giving those acknowledgements. So thank you for noting that. And yes, definitely part of the record. Appreciate the CPC's input and support after a thorough discussion, which is what the townsfolk would expect of you. So thank you.
so
So the MHP, that is actually about the housing trust, isn't it? So in a way, it's the same conversation.
It's the same agenda item in a way. Yes.
do you want me to share either the notes or the things that Shelley just gave, or do you? Want to just talk, Sierra, or what, or enjoy?
Personally, I feel we could sort of give a summary, and then if people want to read through the documents, we can send them.
And I did forward to
yeah.
Jim in case he wasn't getting them, so.
Do you want me to share with those who weren't in
No,
present?
go ahead.
Yeah, a summary, please.
And
Yeah.
feel free to jump in and add things. So she sent over the statute as it looks at the state level. And then our option is to decide whether we want to accept the statute as is or add details to write our own bylaw. And so that's one of the discussions. They recommend accepting it and making as few additions and prescriptions as possible, because the whole point of this housing trust is to have liberty to make decisions. So that's one big step. We're talking about publicity. We've been doing outreach to each committee. As Virginia knows, I did the outreach to the CPC. Joy's been doing outreach to the Finance Committee. Let's see, what else? I asked about your concerns, Virginia, about just sort of the restrictions and how it works with CPA funding, and are there issues with the rules around CPA funding that would cause problems once the money is in the housing trust? And I read through the technical support articles on the CPA website about it. And basically, it looks like they have the mechanisms in place to make sure that any money that goes into the housing trust is still beholden to the same rules of reporting and like grant compliance that any CPA funding would be. They make you account for the money separately from any other money that's in the housing trust, and we have to submit, or they would have to submit an annual report to the CPC. And they encourage, for the seed funding that they're asking for initially, they don't specify that we need to talk about what we're going to spend it on. We don't have to know what we're going to spend that on yet. That's to sort of get it started. But for any future appropriations of money from the CPA, they would want us to give like a ballpark idea of what we might want to spend it on in the next couple of years. So we're not just like willy-nilly transferring money that nobody knows where it's going. Someone else want to share what else we discussed? Those are the points that stuck with me, but I'm probably missing some things.
Joy, do you want to say anything, or? I'm just going to go through, I can.
Can I ask a question, Sierra?
I'm gonna sign in on my computer. My phone is dying. I just got home. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
So we'll stall for time. I'll ask a question of Sierra while you're signing in. So Sierra, when they talk about future, there's the seed money, but then there's future transfers. How specific do they require it? Because one of the things that I think we want the freedom to do is to be able to buy properties quickly, so we can avoid exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah, not that
specific.
It doesn't, we don't have to say we want to buy this property, we can say the goal is we need more than seed money to be in the market to buy properties.
Yes,
is that sufficient detail?
We'll be looking for properties. We could say, for example, over the next couple of years, we'll be looking for purchasable properties that could be converted to affordable housing, and that's what this money would be used for. I think that would satisfy it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and then it would be the reports that we get specific on, and so the CPC would still know where their money is going.
As they should want to know. Yes.
We all know that waiting till the plan is in place to ask for money is stressful and time sensitive, and that's the whole reason we want to have a trust, right? So we don't have to.
Right, and I assume this isn't the state's first rodeo with housing trust. They know that, but it is an assumption on my part. So it's good to hear that you clarify that the level of detail needed is not so that we need the money for a specific property, but the housing authority's goal is to buy properties, or versus the housing authority could have a goal to maintain existing properties that are in the small a affordable range or whatever. That's a different goal, but also, okay. Virginia, you're just hearing about this, but do you have any questions or?
Well, not really. I know that there again, I think the coalition could give you some, the Community Preservation Coalition could give you some help with this. I know for a while they weren't in favor of it. But I think they've completely changed their mind on that because it's one thing if you're in a city and you can usually get right to your city council and begin to get the money. But where you have to wait 3 or 4 months for a town meeting, that's a different story.
Right.
And I
Right.
think they've, I think they softened their tone on that a lot from the beginning, because they were really not advising it at first. But I haven't followed that. I've got to admit, I haven't followed it the way I should have.
Yeah, it seems they put some mechanisms in place just to have a little more oversight over things. And I think that probably, made them feel a little better about the whole situation.
Well, we trust the Historical Commission and even the Historical Society, which isn't a part of town, with our money. We trust the Park Commission, the Conservation Commission. So there's no reason why we shouldn't trust the Housing Trust.
It's right in the name, after all.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I'm glad to see, I think you moving in that direction, because so often a nice little home comes up. And
Right.
the next thing you know, it's not little, it's got a lot of additional stuff in it. And
Right.
you could have gotten it, and if you had been able to move when it came up for sale.
Right.
And then you watch the builders build on and around and above, as I've seen right here on my road.
Yeah.
And the thing is, by the time they get done, it's not affordable, but
Right.
one of the things that affordable housing would open up is that our own children could buy homes here in town when they get started. Or if I want, those of you who know what kind of a house I'm in, want to downsize,
Right.
and I can't do it.
Right. We've been talking about, there's affordable Virginia with a capital A that meets HUD requirements, but there's also creating more housing on the starter and what you're describing finisher home end of the spectrum. That just doesn't happen in town.
No, because they get swept right up.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why the little one across the street here, how come they were able to get that without that becoming a monster? But it's a nice little home, and it's, and when it went on the market, it was on not a long time, but
Yeah, they go generally pretty quickly.
yeah.
So I see Joy has successfully rejoined us.
Well, I think I will leave, and we'll talk more about the housing trust as we go along, because we'll need to set up a way where funds that come in to community preservation can move to that.
Absolutely. Do you need anything from us before you go? Just going back to the article, or you're good with what?
That.
Well, amen to that.
Thank you, Virginia, for putting that together for us so fast.
I reached out to Ed and said, Ed, can you help me run an article? And he said, Virginia's got it covered. Don't worry about it. So
wow.
We are very fortunate, Virginia, that you have
Virginia's
got that.
been doing this. She knows what she's doing. So don't. Mess
Too-
with success.
too long. I was on the original committee and they've never let me off.
Yeah,
That's what happens when you're good,
that
Virginia.
is what
Mm.
happens.
Well, it happens when you enjoy what you're doing too.
Good, good.
So,
It shows.
okay. I'll
All
see
right.
you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Gonna hit that little leave button.
Maybe see, we won't let you leave.
Good.
Okay, thanks to Virginia. All right, so back to that, our agenda item of the MHP input and the status overall of the housing trust. Joy, I think you were going to add some input to what Sierra stated earlier.
Yes. I missed some of what Sierra said.
You could just share about like the outreach you've been doing and anything else.
Okay. Yeah, no, I haven't heard back from Finance Committee. I'm gonna send up a follow-up email with another CC. And see what's going on. At least I don't think I have. No, I haven't. I'm up to date on my emails.
You may want to wait till after the election, because if they have 3 new members on top of the 2, then
Yeah,
it may,
I just want to be on, I just want acknowledgement.
yeah, I hear you.
Mhm.
But maybe if I can grab someone tomorrow, if I see someone, I'll grab them and pull them aside on the Finance Committee and see, or even.
You'll see them Wednesday night, right?
What?
You'll see them Wednesday night.
Wednesday night. What's Wednesday night?
You have a joint meeting with them.
Oh yeah, Wednesday night I will have a joint meeting with them. Yes, and I'm gonna be in lots of meetings this week. I will see them, and I will bring.
Right, wait a minute, who has a joint meeting with them?
Select board.
And
Oh,
finance.
okay, because I have another meeting Wednesday night. I didn't know I had a housing authority obligation, so
You
thank you.
don't.
Not.
Okay, don't scare me like that.
Sorry. Yeah, and besides that, I've just been reading everything that Sally has been sending us. Which
Shelley.
Kelly, I
Shelley,
think.
sorry. Wow. Put me to bed
No.
now.
Too many names to remember in your job, Joy.
I have a goat named Sally. Shelly has been sending us some wonderful material, and I've been reading through all of that. And it's making me itch just to write. I know we're supposed to go through it, but I would just love to have a draft bylaw. So I think I'm just gonna start working on something, if that's okay with everyone.
Mhm.
I think one of the big things we have to decide is who makes up the trust. Where do we
Yeah.
pull people from? And
For
that's
sure. That's a big thing but I think there's some givens, right? Someone from Housing Authority, someone from Select Board, a town administrator. Those are pretty givens.
yeah.
Yeah, and the
CPC.
examples from other towns we've seen, they have great ideas about kind of skills and people we should have on it.
Sure. So,
Okay.
oh, go ahead.
No, go
Would,
ahead.
would that include someone from the town who's not necessarily currently serving on a board, but maybe has some expertise, like a banker or a builder or something like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They said
That's
they
what
could
I
even be
thought.
someone, it could even be someone from another town, they said, if they're an expert that we really want on there. She was just sending us, and they recommend that we don't prescribe that in the bylaw because that can lead to us not being able to find enough people, but they recommend we just make suggestions about the kind of skills we want to see on there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But
So you
we have to
keep
put
it
the amount
broad.
of people, right, in the bylaw.
Yeah, so it says no less than 5 in the statute, and yeah, Shelley said we can make it 7 or 8 or 9 if we want to, just knowing that we need to be able to have a quorum. It seemed like she was concerned that people don't show up to housing trust meetings and that we would never have a quorum if we had too big of a board.
Yeah.
But I could also 7, 8, that sounds reasonable. So
I feel like 7's a good number.
yeah.
7's, yeah, that's an achievable number.
Does strategically, if 7 seems achievable, but we're having trouble finding housing authority members. So I'm wondering if we say 7, that makes for a higher quorum. If you say 5, that makes for a lower quorum.
But if we have to have a town administrator, select board, housing authority, potentially CPC, there's 4 positions right there. You're only leaving one person
Mhm.
on the board.
Yeah, I mean, you could make Ed like a ex officio, non-voting.
Yeah,
with the town
non-voting member.
administrator, you know, so, because he's, and to give you more.
I just worry about making it,
Smaller committee.
right, if we make it more than 5, then you risk, can you get more people?
Right.
And
That was what Shelley was concerned about. Well, on the one hand, I think people are more likely to show up to housing. I think people will be more excited about being on a housing trust board than on a housing authority because they have, no offense to us, who I love, but they're like gonna do stuff and they're gonna, they have like control over money. It just seems to make people feel more important. I feel like if we invite someone to be on it, they'll be honored and excited. Whereas this committee is more like, do you want to volunteer to do work? Which is not to say this committee isn't delightfully fun,
no,
but also, do we appoint them rather than vote them in? So it's like they don't have to go through the whole town
Right.
getting signatures process. It's just a little bit easier. But
it's a
I
lot
also
easier.
think that the number, that's something that we can discuss, and we can see if Shelley has like a best practice recommendation for that.
Yeah, for sure.
She gave
Yeah,
us
so-
some communities too that have trust, that kind of try to do a little research and take a look at what they have. So that's good.
And we had different towns. Did you say we have different towns we're supposed to each be looking at?
I don't know if we actually,
Send us
I
some
said I would look
examples.
into Hadley, but I don't know if anybody else.
I think we talked about Amherst.
Yeah, we had Amherst, Hadley,
Leverett.
Leverett, Williamstown, Lennox, South Hadley.
Yeah. So we're looking at those towns too. And Shelley sent some good information. I think I'm gonna set up like a meeting with Ed, like an appointment. And go over I'm gonna go over what she sent. And really make myself more knowledgeable to discuss with him and maybe bring with him there.
Right, because we want some good information, but I don't think we need to overanalyze this.
No, I spoke with Ed about it and he's like, I'm supportive. I just don't know enough about it.
Right.
Please.
And I think we can rely, talking to other towns is interesting, but really relying on Shelley's expertise, I think is the,
And she's encouraging us to look at other towns as well.
Yeah,
she is.
comparable.
She's
Okay,
the one who gave us the list of towns. So,
okay.
I mean, to see what we can find, if the trust is online, if it's, defined.
Yeah, I think she wants us to make informed choices. I think that's why.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm
We may look at
surprised she
them and be
doesn't
like,
know.
all right, cool. I don't want it to be anything like this, like moving on, but at least we'll know what we're looking at.
I guess I'm surprised she doesn't know all that already and can say, this is what Amherst is doing, this is what Leverett's doing, and save us that. Like,
I mean, out of the 304 communities in Massachusetts, that she doesn't know each one that has a trust. I mean, I think
I don't know if they all have trust, and
they don't all have trust, but
And
There were
I
some
don't know if you-
examples, yeah, she provided some examples, but I think she was just saying, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of how they write the bylaws, look at that.
Yeah, also don't know like how many of the communities she has worked with that she would know that. And I don't know if she goes around just reading for fun. Communities bylaws.
Jim, God.
I don't know that she wants to make up our mind for us, quite honestly, either. I think she wants, like, one of you said, informed decisions,
Yeah.
So.
She
And
has the resources. We're supposed to tap into them. So that's what she's doing for us.
And I said I would, at one of our COA board meetings coming up, I would try to start trying to educate people what's a housing trust, so we can gain, education in that perspective and get the seniors on board. So.
Speaking of, I don't know if you have on your agenda other business. We'll talk about it in member recruitment update.
Yeah, okay, good. So this feels sufficient for me for a status update on housing trust, unless there's other information.
We have another meeting coming up with them, another Wednesday morning. No, or is it a Thursday? We changed it, right?
With them, you mean MHP and
Yeah,
Shelley?
the
Yes.
NHP. Let me
Yes.
see.
Because
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
glad you guys
Thursday
can make those
21st.
meetings.
Thursday, the 21st.
Yeah, it's a Thursday, the 21st. Yeah, it's in my calendar. Good, thanks. So I sent you a couple of documents, Jim, late today that we've gotten from Shelley, because she has us on it because we're in her meeting, but I don't know that she has all of us on it, so. I don't know that you're on. I don't think you're on it, Jim, so.
No. So I didn't look at the details, but I saw that email. Thank you. Okay, then let us move along. It is 7:30. Housing production plan status.
We're
Yeah,
waiting. I haven't gotten an answer from Bradley about, like, there was that one number we wanted to correct, the amount of money that's in the CPA for housing. And I've asked Bradley for it and he has not been able to answer me for a while.
okay. Well, we've done all this work and it's submitted to the state, correct?
Right, for feedback at this point. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean it can't be changed at all, but
Yeah, okay.
or updated.
Well, I don't know what the rest of you folks think, but I think we should just leave that as a standing item till we actually have a housing production plan, just so it stays fresh and
Yep.
we keep pushing. Anyone object to that? Okay. Even if there's not much to say. Member recruitment update.
Joy,
Yoy.
Oh, I went to the Celebrate Southampton meeting last week and they were like, why doesn't Housing Authority have a table so they can do some recruitment and education if needed?
So that's a good question. We were advised when we wanted to present a town meeting by the moderator that that's not allowed, but he suggested things like the Southampton Old Home Days, etc.
Southampton, yeah.
Yeah. So we definitely want to do that, but I was unaware of this opportunity, I guess.
The dates are April 12th and 13th. Or April. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. Like I said, put me to bed. August. Thank you.
Right.
August?
So that's what we were recommended, I think.
So I think we have to let Tammy know that we want a table. Or spot.
Isn't there also
I
a
think we have
springtime?
to provide, Housing Authority has to provide the table and chairs.
Right, a spot, I mean, yeah.
I don't know. I've actually never been to Celebrate Southampton.
Yes, for a spot.
A spot. Okay.
All
I
right.
think there's a form to fill out. Did she share that or no?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay.
I can
ask.
email Tammy Walunas, I assume we're talking about.
Yeah.
So there's an application to get listed or whatever. And it's really only the 13th because the 12th, I think, is like a concert and
Yeah, it's like a Friday night
food.
pick up and go dinner from the church,
Yeah.
right? And then you
Yeah.
go.
So I will email Tammy and request that. But isn't there also an event in the springtime when they have, like in May, when there's I don't know if it comes from the town, but there's like folks get tables to sell things. There's like a craft sale at Conant Park. I recollect by the old
Yeah, I mean,
schoolhouse in the parking
yeah.
lot there. I don't know if that includes opportunities for tables.
I think that's a tough one.
Yeah.
People come from, may not even be Southampton people that are stopping in looking for deals.
So it's all about just that. there.
It's a shopping thing. It's really, I think we'd be better off and celebrate Southampton personally.
Well, I wasn't saying or, I was saying in addition to.
And, right, I'm just,
But if you're saying you don't think there's going to be any legs to that, I'm fine with that. I don't know the
I did
event
that
that
for
well.
one other organization and it really was a bust. So
Mm.
just.
Coming
my
from
experience.
experience. Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, I'm all about, if you did that and you had some good input and interests, that'd be another thing, but we'll take that experience. Okay. I will send an email to Tammy. Good, because, you know, what we've been doing, going through the town census and rolls and basically sending blind, we got one bite, but then once the person found out what we actually do, they withdrew interest. So,
We're not a real housing authority,
right.
so to
Well, to
speak.
be fair, he came on a day when Ken was presenting something very long and tedious, so it might have been not the best meeting to.
I think he wanted to manage properties and kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
And help people apply, you know, like a
Yeah.
real housing, not a real, like a more of a city housing authority that
Right.
has
Yes.
properties.
Like a
which we
staff.
don't. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I like that idea. Any other suggestions for how, other than just word of mouth and just, you know,
I was
promoting it
wondering
ourselves?
If Joy got her signatures or not. You did? Okay. So I
Nice.
may go to the caucus tomorrow night and someone may nominate me for housing authority while I'm at the caucus. So if
what they
anybody
do.
can come during the caucus. Okay,
Nice.
the other way, yeah. Otherwise, if I don't win, I'll just do a write-in vote. I just don't, I want to make sure I'm not going up against Joy because there's 2 openings, so.
Yeah.
Nice. Excellent. Excellent. All right. There are no additional agenda items other than scheduling our next meeting, unless there's folks have some items that need to be discussed that have not been discussed.
Just real quick, I guess I'm curious. So if it passes, if CPC gives us the approval, which they did, and the article gets on, are we gonna, do we not reach out to the Realtor and say, we're putting this before town meeting? And we just want you to make you aware of it, or, you know, I just don't want to be silent at that point in time for the next, I mean, I know, you know, 3 weeks, so just wanted to know what other people thought. I mean,
You
I
think of
think
anything bad that would come of that?
Right. I think it's a good idea to say, to show continued interest.
I mean,
To
is
say
it-
we're moving forward with a town warrant, I think even is fair. There's nothing private about that. We just had a very
Yeah.
public meeting about it.
And
Yeah, I would be surprised if they didn't hear about it and knew the interest that the town had in the property.
And knowing that the only offer we can make is the amount of the appraisal, it's not like they can like increase the price on us, or like if, for example, they were going to drop the price because nobody had been asking about it. Regardless, the only offer we can make is the appraised amount, so that wouldn't really affect us.
Fair.
yeah, I mean, they may hear about it, but I mean, do you want to hear something secondhand, or do you want to hear from the
Right.
source? You
Yeah,
know?
no, definitely firsthand.
Oh, it's good to just be a human, have good human communications with people, I think.
Right. I would encourage that, Janet. I don't know if we need a vote on that. I think it's,
Just a
Yeah.
suggestion, you know, I don't know if we need a vote either.
I agree with that suggestion, if it means anything. It
So
seems
I-
like Sierra does also.
Mhm.
Joy,
You
I
like,
think you
like
too.
me to reach out to Megan? I can reach out to her. I've been working a little bit with Darcy just to let her know of our interest. She works for Taylor. She lives in town.
Yep.
So I can speak to her and see what we should do next, or I am a little concerned about the high water table, so I was a little disappointed because you really can't build a basement. But I think we can work around it, but it may explain a little bit more why people aren't necessarily, well, the price is lower than most acres in town, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of limits you to what you can build, you know, but
Right. Right. Yes. Okay. So should we set our next meeting if there's no additional thoughts or items? It's
the
funny.
day after the town meeting, right? Oh, no, the day before the town meeting.
It must be the day before.
Do you want to do it another day just because?
I wonder.
it
So
would be-
town meeting is Tuesday the 3rd.
Yeah, and if Joy's on it, we kind of committed to her, we would move to the second Monday of the month, I think.
I am down for, that's like a crazy work time for me. We're having like our big fundraiser the night, like that Friday night. And so Monday is going to be crazy, counting all of our money. So I'm so happy to move to the 9th. of September.
Checking. May 9th.
And
I could do that.
I can do that.
Six PM still works for everyone?
Yes.
Alrighty then.
As long as it like, is it gonna be on Zoom still, or are we going in person?
Well, it's going to be on Zoom, but eventually, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, it could be as soon as July that the governor may decide that they have to be in person again, or some kind of hybrid if it can be arranged. But this is working for folks, but that doesn't mean it's going to be allowed forever.
Yeah. I'll make
Does
sure.
that, I guess when we can cross that bridge when we get there, we're not locked into the first Monday, we're not locked into 6 PM. That's just what's worked for most members. But I'm good with flexing.
Yeah, and if we decide to move to the second Monday, we just have to change I think of the website may state that we meet the first Monday of the month, so.
Which was site, the My Town Government or the
No,
Southampton?
I would say.
Southampton website, I think. I mean, I'm not sure. It may. But we can
Well,
check on that. We haven't,
right.
wait till Joy gets on.
Right, we'll see what happens, and we'll do the second Monday in May for now, and if that becomes permanent, we'll look at what's required, if anything.
Great.
Good. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor with a voice vote, please.
Simmons, aye.
K9.
Sini aye. We always get unanimous on that. All right.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Stop
Everybody.
the recording.
Tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Yep.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.